Thanks for joining us. This is 3 Shots In. I am Jake.
I'm Jess.
We have joining us Samuel and Casey.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. So the topic for this episode was unforeseen. I wanted to find something insane, and I did. I found a man whose entire life unforeseen. Balls to the wall. This motherfucker should have died 100 fucking times.
A real Walter Mitty.
And did not.
Yeah.
Jack Churchill. Not associated with Winston Churchill,
Okay.
the Prime Minister of England during World War II, most notably.
Yep.
Yes, they're not related, although that will actually play a role. He was, in fact, an officer in the British military during World War II, born John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill. He was also known as Jack Churchill to his friends, also known as Fighting Jack Churchill to his soldiers.
Did he fight?
Also known as Mad Jack Churchill to probably every civilian that existed at this time.
Was he mad?
He was a talented soldier, leader, swordsman, archer, and bagpiper. He had an absolutely insane leading style during World War II that earned the respect of all of his men and struck fear into his enemies. Born in Colombo, which is modern-day Sri Lanka, in 1906. He attended the King William's College on the Isle of Man.
Hey, Isle of Man, they got that fucking... Where someone dies every time they ride motorcycles there, that contest.
Okay.
Your husband rides motorcycles, he fucking knows what I'm talking about. Isle of Man.
Look it
Them
up.
motherfuckers get to flying down that road and dying.
Anyway, he graduated from the Royal Military College in England, specifically Sandhurst, in 1926, where he was sent to Burma, which is in India, and he joined the 2nd Battalion Manchester Regiment. After completing a signals course, which is for you civilians out here, is basically just like basic communications.
This is FM radio frequency.
I was like,
no, it was AM back then. Probably.
well, dude, I read signals, and I was like, they did smoke signals back in the day. Well, he did this course in Pune, place in India.
Again?
Pune, kind of like Punani.
Yeah.
But no nani.
Puna.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
He chose, after completing the course, to drive a Zenith motorcycle 1,500 miles across India to Calcutta. On his ride, he played a game of chicken with a water buffalo. The water buffalo and him both won. They crashed into each other. It didn't stop him. He got up, he got back on his motorcycle, and he continued on to his regiment, where he met the pipe major of the Cameron Highlanders, bagpiper, who gave him personal lessons to fine-tune his piping skills.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
This is still in India, isn't it?
This is still in India.
Fucking A. Of course it's still in India.
Not much going on in the British military. There was a few revolutions happening, but nothing major. He left the British military in 1936, and he traveled to pursue new career paths. He worked as a newspaper editor in Nairobi. It wasn't for him, so he decided to model for magazines. He worked as a movie extra. In 1938, he took 2nd place in the Officers Class Piping Championships, and in 1939, he competed in the World Archery Championships in Oslo, representing the United Kingdom.
In Norway? Oslo?
That's right.
Oslo.
He took 26th place.
You sick fuck!
So 1939, obviously, war has broken out in Europe, and he returned to the British military and the Manchester Regiment, which was sent to France in the British Expeditionary Force. Basically, the Germans were like moving fast as fuck, and Britain was like, goddamn, we need to react. And they reacted. Spoiler alert, they did not react fast enough. He says, quote, "I was back in my red coat, the country having gotten into a jam in my absence. By the time that the Germans had slammed through Belgium and moved into France in May of 1940, Jack Churchill was 2nd in command of an infantry company in the Manchester Regiment's 2nd Battalion. Now, during the British Expeditionary Force's retreat, as I said, they entered too late. He was absolutely unwilling to give up any ground. He led handpicked soldiers in raids and counterattacks, charging the enemy with his bows and arrows, as well as his claybag, which is essentially a one-handed version of a claymore, which is a sword. This man did not fuck around, okay?
Yep. I've heard of him.
A general awarding Churchill with a decoration for his feats asked why he carried a sword into action, and he responded, quote, "In my opinion, sir, any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed."
Single-handedly the biggest fucking liability on the battlefield.
That is a really badass quote, though.
1,000%.
Absolutely.
Badass in pictures, in person, I know those other British troops like, fucking cunt, eh? Cunt. Yeah, cunt. Yeah, fucking us, we want to go home.
So during the battle, I don't know if it's a battle of Dunkirk or if it was just...
It was a retreat of... Like, they retreated at Dunkirk. Absolutely.
He killed a German officer with his bow and arrow, by the way. He then fashioned the officer's hat onto his motorcycle and was riding around Dunkirk, which apparently like raised morale for everyone. They were like, hell yeah, look at this fucking guy.
Riding around on his motorcycle with the hat of a...
With no underwear.
How would they know that? By looking at him?
I could not prove it.
I'm pretty sure he was also... I think I've seen a picture of your homie here.
Freeballing it?
I think he's wearing a legit kilt. And you know what they say about kilts and the lack of underneath, right?
Yes.
That's how I picture this when you're telling us is like nuts clapping against the fucking bike seat.
Nice.
He's just
spread over that seat, a nut on each side.
Right.
At Dunkirk, he was shot in the ear. He was apparently too tired to duck or run. He attempted to salvage a British tank. He hitched 6 trucks to it and tried to pull it. It didn't work.
Of course it fucking did.
But
He's the asshole.
In the process, he rescued another British officer who was wounded. So after getting out of Dunkirk, because the British military was like, shit, we got nothing. Civilians, drive your boats over there and
We'll be back.
Pick up the lads. He caught word of a new outfit in the British military. Details of the commandos were vague, but they had promised aggressive service.
That's the best kind.
He immediately volunteered, and while training in Scotland, he met Rosamund Denny, and they married in the spring of 1941.
Because her service was also aggressive?
Probably. Hold on. I need a break.
So I've seen a picture of this motherfucker, and he's wearing a kilt. It's a real black and white picture. There's a motherfucker with a bagpipe, like... It looks like it's at D-Day, but it is actually like Dunkirk because it's on a beach. But this bitch has on...
Well, so was D-Day.
Okay. This bitch has a kilt on, got the bow and arrow, got the shit and everything. And I remember like when I was 12, I was like, that's going to be me. I'm going to join the Marine Corps, and that's going to be me.
So after completing the commando training in December of 1941, the commandos were tasked with assaulting the German garrison in Vugsoy, Norway. Churchill commanded 2 companies. They were to take out the German shore batteries on Malloy Island, which was across the fjord from Vagsoy. Churchill, in the frontmost landing boat, he played the March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipes. As they were exiting the boat, he then threw the first grenade, pulled his sword, and charged onto the shore.
Nice.
The battery apparently fell quickly. All Germans were either killed or captured. He allegedly was celebrating, got a little too intoxicated, and he leaned against a wall that was set for demolition. The explosion did, in fact, cause an injury to his forehead, which left a deep scar.
Cool.
But he was fine, and he was awarded his first military cross for his actions.
His first
in
military
both
cross?
Dunkirk and Vagsoy. Okay.
Implying that he gets many more?
Nope.
Oh, yeah. This motherfucker's decorated as hell. We'll get into it. So in late 1943, he took command of the 2nd Commando and headed to Salerno, Italy. His mission was to block the Germans from being able to place artillery fire on the western half of the Bay of Salerno. I don't know where any of these places are. I just know they're in Italy.
I got you, brother. The southern end of Italy. Yes.
Like the boot heel?
Yeah, the boot, not the football, but the boot. The boots are, the boot's good. The football is, was that Sicily? Some dark-haired country, something like that.
Well, during the intense fighting at Salerno, the 2nd Commando were forced to fight as line infantry along American Rangers. I'm assuming they meant Army Rangers.
Texas Rangers.
Maybe Texas Rangers, though. Who knows?
Sorry.
Chuck Norris.
Maybe Walker was there himself. Casualties
God bless.
were high as fuck, but they did manage to beat back every single German advance. During one of the nights in Salerno, Churchill grew impatient. He organized a night attack on a town called Pieggioleti. Due to the heavy overgrowth in the area, they determined that a silent operation was close to impossible. So he chose a different approach. He had his men form 6 parallel columns, and he was to send them charging through the darkness while they were all shouting "Commando," which is kind of funny in itself, right?
Why were they shouting that?
They're the commando.
Had to let
They
it
were
go.
just shouting the name of themselves?
It'd be like Marines being like, Marines, Marines.
Was this
Never
like
done
an
that before.
intimidation tactic or something?
Well, there's a reason. Hold on.
Okay.
This helped the men know where their friends were so they did not accidentally fire at each other. This
Okay.
also caused mass confusion amongst the Germans. And they were also confused as to why Churchill was at the front of his men, charging with his sword alongside another corporal. Together, those two alone captured 42 prisoners, including a mortar team.
What?
When you think about the fire rate of an MG42 or whatever it is, the chances of a bitch with a sword running through a field not getting hit for not the third time? Is this the third time? You always root for the good guy, but I'm like, dude, I want to see a bullet hit him. Just one. How is he alive is what I'm asking.
You're saying he's
a bow,
being,
there's no
he's
fucking
being
way, bro.
so bold that it is impossible that he would have survived this long without an injury, or at least a serious injury.
Correct.
Yeah.
The most
There's
serious
no
injury
way.
was, in fact, at Dunkirk, where he was shot twice. Remember, he was shot once in the ear.
Okay. Yeah.
It did graze his
Yep.
ear. And he was hit in the shoulder real
Okay,
quick.
bitch.
No
this
big
motherfucker's
deal.
hitting the ear and the shoulder out of this many times.
When talking about all of the prisoners that he took, Churchill said, quote, this is kind of a long quote, "I always bring my prisoners back with their weapons because it weighs them down. I just took their rifle bolts out and put them in a sack, and I made one of the other prisoners carry that. They also carried the mortar and all the bombs they could carry, and also pulled a farm cart with our 5 wounded. I maintain that as long as you tell a German loudly and clearly what to do, that he will cry, Jawohl, which means yes, sir, and he'll get on with it enthusiastically and efficiently, whatever the situation." The 2nd Commando completed all objectives. They captured 136 enemies, and Churchill was then awarded the Distinguished Service Order. Now he went off to the Adriatic, and in May of 1944, the British and the Yugoslav planned an attack on the German-controlled island of Brock.
Good troops.
They were to attack 3 separate hilltops, all dug in, all protected by wire and mines, and all covered by heavy artillery. This was, in fact, a suicide mission.
100%. Yugoslav are good troops.
He's still going to live.
The assaults were going nowhere. Casualties were very high. The 43rd Commando went up and had to retreat back after heavy casualties. Churchill then decided to send in the 40th Commando, and he decided to lead them himself, playing his bagpipes.
With a sword? Of course.
With his sword, they did, in fact, overrun the German position.
Naturally.
But once on top of the hill, Churchill found himself with only a handful of soldiers. He and 6 commandos held the hilltop with whatever ammunition they had left, which was basically only revolvers and 1 carbine.
Nice.
The Germans then launched a mortar strike on their position, which either killed or wounded everyone except Churchill, who realized, I'm fine.
Of course. He's not
So, realizing that this was his end, he whipped out his bagpipes and he began playing. The bagpipes survived the mortars, by the way.
Of course they did.
And began playing Will Ye No Come Back Again until German grenades finally erupted around him.
So he died.
So he did die.
He awoke captured.
I was about to say, I know this motherfucker didn't die.
Wow.
What's crazy is shrapnel hit everybody.
But
And his goat skin fucking bagpipes are
Survived.
intact, baby.
Wow.
That's what I thought was the craziest part, that those bagpipes made it this far.
What the fuck is that all about?
Apparently, the Germans thought that he might be a relative of Winston Churchill. And so he wasn't treated like super nice, right? Because he's still a prisoner.
Classic,
But he
though.
lived. Now, I did read in a couple of different places. It just didn't, none of it lined up properly. So I don't know if it's real or not. Apparently, they did try to like ransom him to Winston Churchill.
Ransom.
Yeah, to Winston Churchill. And apparently, Winston Churchill was like, I don't give a fuck about him.
Who the fuck is that guy?
So he was flown to Berlin, where they kept him in solitary confinement. This was the period that maybe a ransom letter was sent or something. Getting the response that apparently was sent, which was like, get fucked, kill him, I don't care. He was in fact moved to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. And in September of 1944, he saw an opening. He crawled under a wire that was
fucking did.
through an abandoned drain and just stood up at the end of the drain and began walking towards the Baltic coast.
With his bagpipes.
He did not have his bagpipes.
Fuck.
Oh, man. Man.
That's right. They did allow him to play the bagpipes at the funeral of his commandos. The Germans did. Which, by the way, at this time, there was, in fact, an order given from Adolf Hitler that was to absolutely slaughter any commando, no matter what. You do not take commandos prisoner. Fortunately for him, the German that was in charge said, I don't like that order.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pretend that I didn't hear it. After the war, by the way. And so, you know, he does live until after the war.
Yeah.
After the war, Churchill and that German were friends.
You know, some of you
that's
play
nice.
games like Elden Ring or like games that have luck as an attribute or something.
Ooh, me.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
No, this motherfucker was full of it.
This is a fucking new game plus no hit run.
So while walking to the Baltic coast, only 3 miles from the coast, he was in fact captured again.
Fucker.
This time they moved him to Niederdorf, Austria, where he would await another opportunity, maybe.
Smart though, they were like, hey, maybe a little further from the coast.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now
Right.
he was just hoping maybe I can escape again.
Does he?
Pretty quickly after, in April of 1945, there was the camp's lights malfunctioned. And so the entire place
he
went
did.
dark. Churchill allegedly simply just walked away into the darkness. He managed to cross the Brenner Pass and entered Italy. He then headed about 150 miles towards Verona. And 8 days into his walk, he caught sight of American armored vehicles, which
Where?
were Americans.
Where?
And they rescued him on his way to Verona.
Verona, Italy. Yeah. So they're closing up their Italian campaign at the same time.
So they rescued him, and apparently he was thankful for the rescue and the medical attention, but he also complained he had missed out on so much of the war being locked up in those stupid camps. He was quoted saying, however, there are still nips, aren't there?
Oh, fuck.
Which is a slur for Japanese.
Again.
So he was like, fuck it, the Germans are done, but I guess I could still go to the Pacific. He headed to Burma, back to Burma in India, where a few places said the largest, some just said large, land war against Japan was still ongoing. By the time his boots touched the ground in Burma, the bombs had already been dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the war ended abruptly. Disappointed, Churchill was quoted again saying, "You know, if it hadn't been for those damned Yanks, we could have kept the war going for another 10 years.
Right.
Wow.
He loved this shit. There was actually an opinion piece that I read about that. They think that the Germans were so confused and in awe of a man sprinting across the battlefield with a sword and a
Right.
bow on his back
Right.
that they did not fire at him.
Right.
That if your sights were on him, you stopped and were like, what the fuck am I looking at?
They were just disbelief.
And therefore, he didn't catch any bullets and was
Right.
able to just walk into your camp and just hold you all prisoner. And either this man is crazy as shit,
Yeah.
or he has been touched by God. Therefore, I must surrender. Anyway, the war is on its way out. The bombs went off. The Axis powers are like, oh shit, we're done, right? But he still wanted some more action. So at 40 years old, he somehow qualified for paratrooper training. He transferred to the Seaforth Highlanders and was sent to Palestine as second in command of the 1st Battalion Highland Light Infantry. In spring of 1948, Churchill got himself into a pretty bad conflict. He and 12 soldiers attempted to assist the Hadessa medical convoy, which was under attack by Arab forces.
Where?
This is right out of Jerusalem.
Oh, fuck, dude. You know nothing good happens right outside of Jerusalem.
The
dude.
British orders were to keep out of the fight. He either didn't hear those orders,
Nope.
or he chose to ignore them. Him and his 12 men fought off 150 insurgents trying to take out the convoy. Now, did he live?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, of course.
Yes, of course he did. So, of the convoy, which was, buses essentially filled with
Right.
medical supplies, I think there were 2 buses. They both caught on fire. Like, this was a losing battle from the very beginning. 77
Of course they did.
out of the 79 people that were in the convoy were killed.
Right.
The event was then titled the Hadassa Medical Convoy Massacre. Anyway, so after the Hadassa Medical Convoy Massacre, he then decided he orchestrated the evacuation of 700 Jewish doctors, students, and patients from the Hadassa Hospital in Jerusalem, where the convoy was heading. This is in spring of 1948.
1948?
Yes, sir. World War II, in our history books, ended in 45.
Right.
In
But
the
there's
global
further-
scale, it went on for about another 4 to 6 years.
So hold on. Just so we're clear, we have a proclaimed history buff and an actual history buff. Just so you understand, it might be a little confusing.
Roughly.
And someone
See,
who knows nothing about
The difference is
2 people who know nothing.
the difference is I would read history when I feel like it sober, and I don't feel like that's the case over here.
Right.
I feel like the other one over here listens to history while intoxicated.
No, I read and listen to nonfiction history books while intoxicated.
Now, remember, he led the evacuation of 700 people
Right.
from a hospital in Jerusalem where the convoy was going. He then served as an instructor at the Land Air Warfare School in Australia, where he became passionate about surfing. He's probably 50 years old at this point. After moving back to England, he was, in fact, the first man to ride the Severn River's tidal bore. Tidal bore, it's about a 5-foot wave that rides along this river.
Okay.
But he's the first man to ever surf there. Now it is it's like a surfer's hub, and he designed his own surfboard. Then he decided to retire from the military. He got 2 awards of Distinguished Service Order in 1959. But he wasn't done with like military-ish shit. He worked as a civilian now,
Right.
overseeing the cadet training for the Ministry of Defense. He and his wife, Rosamund, they lived out their days in Surrey. He apparently decided that he really liked driving coal-fueled boats.
Come again?
He died peacefully, surprisingly,
Wow.
in spring of 1996.
I'm not surprised.
I mean,
Finally, he needs to
he
die.
should have died so many times.
But that's what I mean.
Wait, you said 66?
1996. That's 1 year before.
96?
1 year before I was born. He lived 90 years old. I think he was 89, but 90 years.
Pause. I've got a great granddad, and this kind of proves that point. My Papa D, great granddad, didn't really fucking know him. Everyone tells me he was a mean bastard. He was a mean man. If you're mean, you live long. That's all I'm getting from this. If you're a mean, just crazy ass motherfucker, you're gonna live long.
I've got the opposite experience.
I was going to say,
we
our
had our papa.
our great grandpa.
He lived to 109.
I've got more instances.
And he was
of
a
being
pacifist vegetarian
Okay,
He's
you
a
got to be
Swedish man.
extreme
who,
left.
who didn't
extreme.
smoke and didn't drink.
No,
Papa D
he
smoked,
did drink.
Drank.
I'm sorry. No.
That
No,
was his secret to
he
life.
didn't
By the
drink.
way,
he
if
didn't
you're here,
drink. No. He didn't drink.
Yes, he did.
He only did a shot of silver Patron when his throat hurt.
Fuck that.
No.
My Papa D smoked, dipped, drank, lived till he's 92 years old.
Jessica,
That's
you are
a
wrong,
fact, baby.
After he turned 100, our great grandfather decided that in order to live, he would take 1 shot of frozen silver Patron every single morning.
Okay, but if it's after 100, that doesn't really
No,
count.
but that was
Every
that was
morning.
a nutrition supplement.
yeah.
That wasn't
Doesn't
drinking.
count. He
That's
needs,
not
like,
prolonged
iron
drinking.
and fucking like legit fucking isopropyl alcohol.
Like as he
Like,
got
fuck
as he got
that.
older, he stopped speaking English.
Of
So
course.
if you asked him in Spanish, how the fuck did you live this long? He would tell you in Spanish, a shot of Patron every morning.
Okay, my
You got
Papa D would take out
108-year-old man.
juicy
Be like,
fruit.
oh, you got to take a shot.
My Papa D would take out juicy fruit and probably spit in your face. not really, but legit a very bitter man, right? Like my granny Papa, my father. When I ask him about him, he's a very bitter man, like just an asshole,
Salty.
right? Just a salty old man.
Salty.
And I think that like I've heard too many stories about salty old men. They live the longest.
I'm sorry, Jake.
Maybe.
Do you have more of your
Maybe,
story?
maybe.
There's one last thing. In March of 2014, so about
Come on,
20
give me
years
a
after his
fucking
death,
break.
he in
Okay,
fact broke
okay,
out of his grave, climbed up. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
I was like,
I was like, what the fuck?
bitch, what the fuck?
No, in March of 2014, the Royal Norwegian Explorers Club published a book that featured Jack Churchill, and they named him as one of the finest explorers and adventurers of all time. And he is. I don't know how the fuck I'm 27 years old, only now learning about this man.
Wow.
Pretty dope.
That
And now we all know about him.
What a life he lived.
like, you don't even need to teach me about World War II. Just teach me about this man. That's all I
Yes.
need to know.
Yeah.
There's tons of stories in that. There's tons of like stories of women, of men, of like fucking dogs and horses. Shit,
Yeah.
y'all seen the horses one?
no.
How?
Yes, there's like horses in
I
World War
haven't.
II, and they just get gunned down, except for one. Sad story, anyway.
How is the military not capitalized on this man just doing absurd shit and not dying and
Brother-
being proclaimed a badass after the fact?
Brother, they have. I went into the military. I saw
No,
that
but no, I'm
picture.
saying not this man. They did other men.
No.
They did those men, but they didn't do
Right.
this man.
They do dudes, Gog, but they didn't do that guy.
Hey, brother, I'm there. No, I remember seeing a picture of that guy in the Times and popular media, right? Like, it's like, hey, are you going to be this masculine man that wears a kilt, no underwear, balls scraping across the sands of fucking Dunkirk? Dude, by the time I got to the military, I was like, damn, is there a fucking machine gun bunker to run up or what, dude? And they were just like, no, get fucked, bitch. I was like, oh, man. Sorry.
No. That is the end. That is
right.
the end, and that is the end of this episode. I think.
It
What was his name?
Yes.
Yes.
Jack Churchill.
Churchill.
Jack Churchill, or
Fucking-
most commonly known as Fighting Jack Churchill.
Well done,
Yes.
Jacob.
Thank you for listening and enjoying my story like I know you did. I did leave out things, though. Things that didn't matter so much. And if you cared so much, just Google the fucker. Read about him.
Right,
It's worth
do
it.
it.
There are like 8 books written about this guy.
And while you're at it, join us on Patreon and check out our sponsors on there on our website, 3shotsin.com. We'll see you there, and we'll see you next week.